Okay. Whew. I'm excited about our guest today,
Me
Elizabeth.
too.
She's kind of my girl crush, just to be to be
Are you
honest.
gonna fangirl this interview?
So I want everybody to meet Paula Pizarro. She is a VP of Development at Pride Staff. She's spent her 40-year career helping others achieve success in their chosen fields and through business ownership in the staffing industry. She started right out of college in the franchise staffing office, helping companies find talent and helping candidates find their dream jobs, and then later also managed multiple franchise units. So Paula climbed the corporate ladder in three major staffing organizations. And then the last 12 plus years, she's acted as the vice president of franchise development with Pride Staff, a national staffing franchise with a stellar reputation, evidenced by multiple Diamond Awards through the Net Promoter Score. So Paula, some of you might know, is an avid traveler. She's a bookie, as in she loves and devours books. And she's also
Not the gambler type.
No, not that type.
Okay, just checking. Go ahead.
Yeah. And she's an Auburn College football fan. So Paula's purpose is to help others achieve their dreams and ambitions by owning a business in a valued, essential industry. And she's had a lot of mentors and coaches along the way. So welcome, Paula. We're really grateful to have you here.
Oh, I'm very blessed to be a part of this. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So, this show is focused on women and purpose and passion and profit and relationships. When you and I and Elizabeth were talking the other day, one of the things you mentioned 40 years ago when you were out in the real world and got into staffing, oftentimes you were one of very few women. Can you share a little bit about that and the experience around that and what ended up, what with these men and how they may have assisted you or deterred you? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, absolutely. So when I first got into staffing, in the staffing offices, it was, what's really funny is that years and years ago before I got in, literally women placed women and men placed men.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, talking to people that were before me, they said that it was kind of divided that way. When I started in the staffing franchise, there were a lot of women in there. But as I moved up into the corporate ladder, it was very male dominated, and in a good way. They were great leaders. But women in the 80s, when I was coming into the corporate, really started getting into roles that they had never been in before. So in all three of the major companies that I worked for, in the franchising development department, I was the first woman to be in the department. And even when I was a support rep, I was the first woman that went out and traveled. And so it was really kind of a male, as I was saying, dominated world. And, they kind of joked around with me a little bit, that they weren't going to carry my bags or, I'm like, no problem. I was raised with 3 brothers, no sisters. I can hang with the boys.
That's right. I got muscles too.
Yeah, me too. And so, but what I learned is that they didn't mean anything negative about it. That there were so many that were happy to share with me, their thoughts and advice and help and, mentored me to help me move into that world. And I'm so grateful for it because I absolutely would not be here today if it wasn't for them. I have a long list. I won't bore you with my long list. But with all 3 of the companies, they had leaders there who were so helpful. And it's still true today for me. That we have wonderful leadership at Pride Staff. Although I will tell you that the majority of women in management at Pride Staff the majority of in management and executives are women. Isn't that great?
Wow.
So, but we have our fair share of men too. And so it's a good mix. And so what I think is wonderful is that in today's world, it's no longer different. It's no longer special to be the first woman in the departments. The world has changed a lot. And I think the franchise world has created a lot of this because a lot of the women in franchising have actually come up through the organizations that they worked in and did the jobs before they went into the corporate. And I think that's an important part of this. But I think the mentoring is a very special part of business, and that we all need to be not just open to being mentored, because the day we think we're right is the day we start to rot. And so, but I also think we need to be open to helping others and opening doors for them.
I love how you put that. I've had similar experience in that being kind of first into a particular space and being the only female at a board table, but similar, where men were my champions. They would step in and teach me and edify me and encourage me and open doors. So I had similar kind of experience and still do with some wonderful mentors. So this whole idea of mentoring and championing, being the champion for one another, kind of the one up and one down, hand up to be helped and hand down to help another, is so important. And franchising exemplifies that, I think.
And I think that if you're in an organization that has a culture of that we're all in it together and that we all win, as opposed to trying to climb over each other to get where we want to go, that if we get there together, then it's a win-win. And I know that's such a cliche to say, but it's true. Cliches actually come from truth.
Right. Well, they totally do. And I think that, at every level, as you are working your way up through any kind of, whether it's a franchise roles or corporate, I'm sorry, it is so scary right now. There's lightning everywhere.
It's not lightning.
It's lightning. So if I get lost, if the power goes out, I'll come back on as soon as I can get it back on. But I think that at every level of life, professionally and personally, you can find a mentor. And I think that as you grow, like I think we talked about this a little bit too, finding your sweet spot of where you excel in mentoring. I'm at a phase where my older children are college students, and I really enjoy mentoring that age. When I taught dance, I couldn't stand middle school, but I liked high school because I was better at it. So I in terms of how you look at that role as a mentor and as someone who continues to be mentored, what do you think the relationships need to look like? Like, who do you seek out, or who? And sometimes it naturally happens without seeking it out. But what do you think is a good mix in terms of trying to find the right mentor?
I think, first of all, it's someone who genuinely cares about what happens to you.
Yeah.
And that they delight in your success and they're not threatened by you.
That's perfect. Go ahead.
Super important.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're from the industry, and sometimes it's just advice in life. I'll give you a crazy example. Early in my career, there was a gentleman in my organization, and not the company I'm with now, but that for some reason we had this competitive relationship, and I just, no matter what, I just couldn't connect with him. And he was brilliant at what he did. So the owner of the company called me to his office, and he said, "Paula, I want you to invite him to lunch." And I said, "He won't even go with me if I want him." He said, "No, Paula, he will." He said, "You need to go break bread with him." Yeah. He said, "When you sit down with someone in an environment like that and you get to know them as a person, they will open up to you and they will see that you're genuine and they will respond to you genuinely." He said, "I guarantee that it will work." And so I did. I was hesitant to make the call. He went. It was awkward for the first 5 minutes. We hit it off. He ended up recruiting me to work in his department. And I'm still friends with him and so grateful. And I'm grateful to the person that gave me the advice. because the person who felt like he was my adversary really wasn't. He just needed to get to know who I was. And so, I think that that's not something where I learned something about the industry in particular, but how to deal with people.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, and that's what it all comes down to, really. And I think that's why Rebecca and I like to talk so much to people about who they are outside of work and inside. But those things drive you to build relationships that benefit you in your career. And without those skills, I don't think people often value that enough, that you really have to build those connections. And sometimes you do have a barrier. I've worked with, women sometimes get that reputation for being cutthroat and competitive. And that may or not be true. It may not be true when you break down that little wall and you find out that maybe someone's shy or intimidated. I was shy growing up, and people always thought I was aloof or snobby, and I wasn't. So sometimes I just was afraid to talk back then. I know it's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe. But, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it, Elizabeth.
When I was little, I was pretty shy, but people misinterpreted that. So what you did with him was you cleared up a misconception between the two of you, and then you were able to move past it. And I think that's a huge thing when you're willing to reach out and try to correct that before it becomes too adversarial or uncomfortable.
Well, and the beautiful part of it was the person that gave me the advice was the owner of the company. And I was this junior executive, and that he took me under his wing and took the time to give me that life advice that I have lived with forevermore.
Right.
Right. And so you never know what little pearl of wisdom someone drops on you that might change your life and change others.
Yeah. You may have to write a book on this, Paula. You're going to call it Breaking Bread to Get Ahead. Breaking Bread to Get Ahead.
I love it. I love that. Okay, so I think my book should be The Women in Me.
Okay.
Ooh, I like that too.
Elaborate. What's this book going to be about?
It's going to be about the women ahead of me in my family and my friends and my colleagues that inspired me, and that, that I watched, I tried to emulate. I learned some things not to do, but the women in me. But
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, the DNA that was passed on, the examples that you got to observe.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to keep you to it. We're going to check in with you and see if you write these 2 books, The Woman in You.
I'll start with the chapter.
Breaking Bread to Get Ahead. So, because it is about relationship. It really is about that. And you took the time to sit down and break bread with someone and allow yourself to be vulnerable. And you went from thinking you were competitors to becoming collaborators. And I also have to give kudos to your boss, right? Who had the sensory acuity to see the talent in you and could see that there was a block for where you needed to go. And so he, instead of going to that gentleman and saying, quit being mean to her or whatever he thought he was,
right.
He put the power in your hands and gave and said, here's what I recommend, but it was still your choice. And it was a beautiful recommendation that brought 2 people together to start to collaborate and work together versus work against each other.
Yes. I wouldn't be in franchise development if it wasn't for the gentleman that I broke bread with.
Right.
I'd be in staffing, but not in this part of it. And this part of it, I love.
Yes, you do.
I love all of it, actually. But this part, we really help people change their lives in a big, big way.
Yeah. Which brings up another topic, Paula, because you really are crazy passionate about helping people not just find the right jobs because you're in a staffing business, but also to find the right business and select, staffing if that's what's right and best for them. So how do you determine in yourself and in others what success is? Because you have a passion for having others be successful, but is success defined differently for one person than another? And how do you define it for yourself?
Well, I definitely think it's defined differently for individuals, because there's some people that measure their success by money, by fame, by self-satisfaction, by helping others. I think it's I mean, there's a lot, and a lot of it, quite frankly, nobody's really one-dimensional. It's interwoven, right? But for me, it's more about knowing that I helped a person to really understand what is out there. Because I think that, we were talking earlier, Elizabeth, about your children going to college. And really, when you're in high school, you have no earthly idea what the options in life are. You have no idea of all the jobs that are out there, all the potential. You just don't know, right? So I think it's, for me, it's helping people see what their options are, and then learning enough about it so they can make a really good decision for their life and their family, their future, and even the future generations of their family are affected by it. And that's especially true in business ownership, right? Because you could build up a business that could pass on, or that you could sell, or whatever it is, or set an example for your children, with work ethic and everything. So to me, I think the definition of success is that someone is not only successful at it, but that they have self-fulfillment, and that they affect the lives of others in a positive way. To me, that's what it's about. And so I use programs, like we're talking about Zoracle. We're talking about programs where you measure a person's ability and talents and maybe how they match. So I'm a big believer in that. I devour the information. I want to make sure, right? And then when I'm speaking with them, one of the things I do is I let them talk first, and I want to hear about them from themselves. A resume or an application is just words on a page, right? But when they talk, I can see their heart. I can get a feel for what their real culture is, and how do they define success, right? So if the definition is me, then they might be successful in some industries, but they're not going to be successful in staffing, where we're affecting people's lives. So I want to get to know them and see what they're really made of. And I think that over time, and also with the tools that are available to us, that we can do a better job of that.
Okay, I have a secret to tell you, and Elizabeth knows this is true.
Oh,
Elizabeth and I actually talked before you came on, and I said, we're going to have one problem with Paula on this show. I said, she is so curious about other people. She's going to start asking us questions. And so it's going to be hard to have her talk about herself. And so you just described that you really want to get to the heart of an individual, whether it's, in staffing, helping them find the right position for them, or at Pride staff, is this the right franchisee? So you do get to the heart of that by asking questions and spending time with them, because you want to know, is that prospective franchisee a franchisee that's going to do well within Pride staff? Are they going to be fulfilled? Are they going to be successful? Are they going to be happy? Are they going to be able to self-express? So that's my secret. That
That's so funny. Well, and I think we all have a little bit of that in common. As a writer and a publisher and an interviewer, I have that same desire. I want to know about people and what got them where they are, what happened to them that made these decisions possible, or whatever. But I do think, in franchising, that's an important question when you're vetting potential franchisees. But I also think in terms of leadership positions for franchise owners or in the franchise system as a whole, being able to find out what drives someone helps you lead them better, because everybody is individuals. Like, my 5 kids are all incredibly different humans and are motivated by different things and are rewarded by different things. And so finding the way that works, nobody's cookie cutter. So I think that skill has probably come in handy for you throughout your career, when you say that you've been able to manage people in a way that they want to be managed, and find what brings them up to that next level?
Yes, I believe so. And I'll tell you something I learned from George Rogers. He's the founder and chairman of Pride Staff. And George told me when I first joined the company, he said, I want you to look around at you, at the other executives in the organization, and you're going to find that they're all different. They all have different strengths and different weaknesses. And he said, and that's on purpose. He said, if we pick everyone who's the same, he said, we all have the same strengths, but we also have all the same weaknesses.
Right.
And he said that by, having a mix of that we all balance each other out and make each other stronger. And I think about that too, when I'm talking to candidates, and especially if it's a couple, a husband and wife, do they have strengths that balance?
Right.
And will this business owner have the ability to look for people on his or her team the same way? And so that's one of those little jewels, right? Little pearl I picked up from George that I've used in franchising, but I think it applies to a lot of things.
It does. It certainly does. To surround ourselves with people that think differently than we are, have different strengths than we have, are motivated differently. I do believe that we are not meant to be islands and independent, that we are really meant to be in relationship and interdependent on one another. Recognizing that and not selecting people that are exactly like ourselves, but instead complement ourselves, and we can complement them, is vital. And in staffing in particular, this has got to be a top of mind for you all the time. As a prospective franchisee, and then placing people in various positions, will they ultimately get the satisfaction and the success, like we talked about earlier, by being in that role and with that particular company or that particular position?
To that point, I'm sorry, my computer just kind of jumped up funny. So it has a mind of its own. To that point, we focus a lot at Pride Staff on what we call the fit in factor, because people are hired for their skills and experience, but they either do well or they don't do well because they don't fit in culturally somehow. And I'm talking about work ethic, things, or, and not just ethic, but the way we work, right? Like some people want the individual to be very outgoing and communicate well with others. Some want you to be heads down, focused, right? Plugs in your ears. And so we find that by really digging in and finding out what's important on both sides, that we're able to make much better matches with people, and that they're happier and they succeed. And I think that's true in franchising too. I think it's true. In hiring people. I think it's even true in picking your friends.
Now that's good advice.
Or your mate, right?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Pick your friends based on.
But I mean, it really, some of the most wise things in life are simple. If you just think of them, or somebody tells you, or somebody's gracious enough to share with you. And that goes back to the mentoring, doesn't it?
That goes back to the mentoring, back to having champions in our life, and back to the whole purpose of relationship and the importance of fostering those relationships. Because to your point about the friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we did deliberately and consciously choose friends that were completely different than us, so they could point out our blind spots, and we could grow and we could develop, and we can go to them about advice in areas that we are weak. I mean, that would be brilliant if I could say, okay, I'm weak in this area. Who amongst my friends is strong in that area?
Yes.
That's brilliant. I like that.
Yes. And sometimes what I find is that it's not always somebody in business who's in a position above us.
Yes.
Sometimes it's, an equal position. Sometimes it's a position that we are, in the corporate ladder higher than, but that they are wiser about certain things, and that we all can learn from each other. I even think it's true about our competition. And I really kind of hate that word, competition, because I think that other people that are in our same industry are typically very wise people. They're very good. They have a lot to offer. There's a lot of room for all of us. And if we help each other and we're friendly with each other, we all win.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's true in staffing. I find that to be true. I'm friends with and have still, maybe if not close friends, business associates from my previous companies and with other organizations in staffing. And, we're in this together. We all want to help people get good jobs, and we want to help companies find great people. So I think that it's easy to look at others in our business as being, the other guy, right? The competition, but we're really all in it and to help people. So we can learn from our competition.
Indeed.
I think so. And I think if you're not, you're missing out. Some of the most successful people I know are people who pay attention to what the other people are doing, not in the effort to squash it, but to say, is there something I'm missing? Is there an idea out there I haven't thought of? Is there, as they like to say, life is not a pie. There's enough for everybody to go around, and
yes.
To be able to have someone feel that they can call you up and say, hey, have you encountered this problem before? Mm-hmm. How did you handle it? I think it's a critical thing. It's a critical attitude to have in business. I like to do it. I when my babies were little, I pulled all my friends and said, how did you handle this? I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I love a good poll.
Me too.
In business. Yeah. And I've done that with starting a magazine. I've done a lot of writing and a lot of with publishing, but I haven't done this specific thing in this specific industry. So I'm willing to talk to anybody who will talk to me. I think it's
wonderful.
It's just a great thing to be able to rely on each other that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is.
Well, I hate to stop this conversation because I'm so enjoying it and my brain is going 90 miles an hour. I'm going, I wish I had a pen. I could write this down. But Paula, can you tell us how folks would get hold of you if they wanted to reach out to you personally, learn more about Pride Staff? How would they reach you?
Yes, ma'am. There's a couple ways. Number one, if they email me directly, that would be just fine. My email is Pizarro, Pizarro @pridestaff.com. Or you could email our department, franchise development @pridestaff.com, because I get so many emails that I wouldn't want it to get lost in there. And I have a wonderful administrator who would make sure that I didn't miss it. Or you could call me at 559-326-4438. I'm also on LinkedIn and I have Facebook too. But any way you want to reach out, I'm happy to talk with you and learn about you and see how I can help you. And I'm sure you can help me too. So please feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Excellent. So Elizabeth, we need to go to another sponsor, don't we?
We do need to go to another sponsor, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you better and finding out what drives you and what your story is. So I really appreciate that you were willing to take the time to come on today.
May I say one final thought before we go?
Absolutely.
I think in franchising, one of the most important relationships to have is with your franchisees. Mm-hmm. We call them our strategic partners because we're in this together.
Yeah.
And that our main focus in life is not how many units we add. It's helping our existing strategic partners to accomplish their goals and dreams in life and to build the brand together. And I think in franchise development, that is critical that we build those relationships and maintain them. So thank you for letting me join you. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts, and thank you for letting me learn from you. I look forward to learning more from you in the future.
We appreciate you, Paula.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.